Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video M2A603 I'll be talking about the Lego platform Mecha Bricks and how you can get their models into Maya or another 3D application and just apply shaders and make it look nice. I will be brushing up on my previous tutorial about M2A602 where I was showing the basics of the standard surface shader. And in this 603 course, I'll be using those techniques to create a bit more advanced shaders using textures and file input nodes and all these kinds of things. Check it out what we will be producing in this course, and I hope there's some things which might interest you. So I think like showing you how to create those nice looking scattered shaders and this breakup in the reflections, and also how to create nice looking plastic glass windows. And just like here and there I'll be showing you a few tricks and maybe some things you didn't know about, like setting up shading networks and stuff like that. So now you can see I have the website here open, mechabricks.com, and I will share this exact link which will give you, which will bring you to this T1 Lego vehicle. But you can choose any other model you want to test this with, because the setup I'm showing you is very much procedural and you can do pretty much any Lego model with this. So once you have picked your model, all you have to do is go to File on the top here and then Export, and then what I did is group by geometry and color, and I had I think smooth normals on, and I just exported that. Like I didn't take the Lego option here, which will pretty much do a burn-in on each of the bricks so that you see the genuine Lego trademark imprint on each brick. But yeah, I didn't do that. All you gotta do then is export this, and next up we will be in Maya, and I'll be showing you how to bring that in. So in Maya, all you have to do is actually go to File, and in the top menu go to Import. And I'm already in the correct folder where I extracted the zip file to. So there's a DAE file and a texture subfolder. And I'll just click on the DAE file. I want to group it so it's not all, because there's tons of parts. And I just want to import that. So now you can see that all the files are being imported and all the shaders as well. It actually generates you Phong materials, which are quite cool, but I'll have a little script which will help you guys to convert this stuff. So now you can see the stuff is coming in. We've got the materials here, and I have my group and all the different parts in this group here. So let's just rename this maybe Lego T1. So we have our vehicle, and you can see in the hypershade we have all these kinds of materials. So I created for you a little script which you can just run, and then it will generate standard surface shaders for all the existing Phong shaders, and it will reconnect your inputs and outputs. So in this script editor, I have the convert shader py file and the utilities py file, and I'll be using both of these files. I will give the scene file away without the Lego car, because you have to download that yourself from Mecha Bricks. But I'll be providing the py file and the convert shader script. So obviously they will only be available on my Patreon account. So if you want to support me there in the source file tier, you can get access to this by just subscribing to the source file tier. Or you can obviously just write it yourself, like whatever, what if you want to support me, obviously you can go on Patreon. If not, you can just retype all this. So you can see we have the textures, which is great, and the colors. So to get the shader to convert your stuff, what I always do, you can obviously select all the shaders manually in here, but I'll just display, turn off DAG displays off, and I'll just select all the MBF Phong shaders in here, and the script expects you to select them beforehand. So they are now selected, and all I have to do now is select everything. You can just hit Ctrl A, and then you hit Ctrl and Enter, and what it will do, it will run the script, and it will swap the shaders out. As you can see, it just did that. It kept the same assignments, and it also reconnected the textures, right? So Everything is as it was, but we pretty much swapped out the shaders, which is a pretty cool thing for you to do, so you don't need to bother about these kind of things. So that's the first step. So what we want to do next is let's just create a plane, which is our ground plane, and maybe something like this. And then I want to create a new shader, assign new favorite shader. I have this AI shadow mat. If you don't have it, go to assign new material and look for that shader. So I have that assigned. And the next step, what I want to do is bring in a light source, Skydome light, and let's just clear all the shaders. Clear all shaders and bring that Skydome light. And I want to connect a file node texture, which is right here, and I have a little preset. Oh, I don't actually. I need to just go there quickly. It's this guy, which I want to use, which is like an outdoor sunny environment, like that. So these are my two file nodes. I want to save this. Yes. I enabled an autosave script because I keep forgetting to save, and then yeah, you know how it goes. All right, so this is not connected. The script already did set some defaults in the shaders, so everything is good to go, I think. All right, so this is now our little vehicle, like a fairly fast render, I guess. But before we go continue, I mean, I have like all these textures in here, right? So right now in my kind of setup, I'm getting them as an ACES color space, but I don't want. I want them as sRGB because I know they are sRGB textures. So what I want to do is select those guys in my utilities Python script. I have a little thing here which actually does that for me. So I'm just running that script, and now you can see they're all converted in for sRGB textures. Another thing what I wanted to do is create a camera. So I like these kind of camera placements. So I'm just creating a new camera from view, and I'm just renaming this to main as my main camera. I'm generating the frustum here, and I'm just, first I want to change my focal length. So I always like to have a higher focal length because it gives a nicer depth of field and a bit more, like it's not super fish-eyed. So maybe something like this for my main layout, maybe a bit more from the bottom. I think that's pretty cool. And I just want to lock this so I cannot move it anymore. So I have my main camera set up, and I also want to make sure that I have my render settings in place. So first of all, I don't have any AOVs, so I just want to bring those in. It's just my default setup. I can also provide that in the scene file, so you will get that there as well. And then I want to import render settings, GPU denoise AA, which is also my presets. And this is just 10A samples, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, and this is what we get out of the box. So it's a bit overlit for sure. So let's just, we don't need the outliner anymore. So I'm just hiding the outliner. And what I always use while I'm rendering, I have always a nice library of reference images. So I just went off on the internet and just Googled or searched for this little thing here. And you can see now we got quite a few little options here, like reference images. You can see the white, it's not fully white, it's more like a yellow, it's almost a bit tinted. You can see it in here, and even the red bricks are not 100% perfect. So I always tend to keep like a little reference window there for me to actually work with. And this is actually pure ref. Let's see if there's info about it. pureref.com, and yeah, so this is what I'm using. And I always like to have something open, just to always be a bit more efficient, I'd say. So this is now what we got, and I think it works pretty well, at least from the get-go. Let's just make sure the mode is always on top. All right, so now we have the textures in place. So I think the first thing to do is just dial in the shaders, because this is what the tutorial will be about. But before we finally start, what I want to do is I want to create a round corner shaders to each of those bricks, because in here they are very hard edged, and I just want to add some kind of roundness to them. So there's a shader called round corners, like this, which is pretty much a bump shader for its own. So you could actually plug this directly into any shader you want. But for a bit more control and for things which we might do later on, I just want to connect this actually to a bump shader instead. And from out normal to out value to normal. And I just want to call this maybe master bump slot, like that. And also what I want to do, because I know I will use it, I want to create a AI range. Oh, let's actually create an AI color to float, which will be my master SSS scale. So these two things, I will actually connect them. So I forgot that, so I will need to bring back the outliner. And what I want to do for each of these shaders, what I want to do is I want to connect this bump master to all of these shaders. So in the script editor, let's just make this a bit smaller and up here. In the script editor, I have this little thing which connects the master bump, which is actually this name, which I just need to replace, which connects that to every shader's normal camera. And then also this guy will be connected to every shader's subsurface scale. So what I want to do now is select all my shaders and just run this script here, which is not connected. And then I want to also run this second script here. So now these two things are connected. And if I just frame this shader and I just select it and graph materials on or viewport selection, you can now see that both of these things are connected to my shading network. And all these little helper things I use all the time just because it helps me be a lot more efficient, and everything is just faster if you use these kind of little helpers for you to actually get going. All right, so now we can continue on with the lesson. So now the round corners is connected, and all I want to do now is change the radius, let's say to maybe 0.5, and now we should get rounded corners everywhere. And you can already see that all these edges are a lot rounder. There's more I don't know, more edge detail to them, so it's not super crisp. I mean, you can see the same in the reference, right? There's some kind of roundness to everything here, which is great, which is what we have right now. So but the first thing I'm noticing is my light is, I think, or it feels for me too front lit, so I just quickly want to rotate this so it's a bit more forgiving. Let's just move it a bit further back. Yeah, I think that works. So we get this nice longer shadow and some shadowing up top. So this is pretty much what I like. So let's just keep going with that. And you can still see that the round corners are working very nicely here on these edges. So if I would just render this little thing here and I would pretty much disable the round corners, you can see that we get these super hard edges. And this is not what we want. We want nice and smooth, so we get always a nice glint there from the light source. All right, so let's just work on the shader now. So we have selected the shader right here, which is this red color. And we also want to make sure that we're using subsurface scattering because this is a plastic, right? So in the in the subsurface option, what we want to do is bring up, or like enable the weight like that. And we already have a connection here for the scale, which is this, which is great. So right now we don't have any color, right? So what I want to do actually is connect the color to the subsurface color as well. And to do that, we will just need to run the script, another script quickly, which should be fairly quick to do. I haven't set it up because I didn't think of it just yet, but it should be fairly straightforward. We still have all the selections of the shaders, I think. No, we don't. So we need the outliner as well. So we do this. And all we want to do now is we just copy this and paste it, and what we're running over all shaders, and what we want to do is we want to get the color and we want to get the subsurface color, right? So, and we want to weight. So we want to do quite a few things. So I'm getting the base color. So let's just do s.get, .get. So now we're getting the base color and we want to set it, right? So we do s.subsurface color .set, and we want to paste this result. So we just do this, So now we're getting the base color and we're setting it as my subsurface color. And then we want to make sure that the weight is on. So the subsurface thing, we need to set this to 1. Like so. Copy and paste. And we just want to subsurface. I'm not sure if you want that though, because this would set it to everything. We don't want to enable it for all the things. We just want to get the color, right? So we can set the weights individually. So let's just run this. So now you can see everything gets this color. Even the red one here has now the red down there. So that's perfect. So back to the render view, hiding the outliner and bringing this back down here. We now have, at least for the red shader, we have scattering enabled, and we don't have any scale yet because our master scale is right now on black and we want just to have some value here. So let's just try maybe a radius of 2.25, right? So now you can see everything is super translucent and it looks super soft. So this is obviously not what we want, but we will keep adjusting this now. So let's just go to the color here and change the radius to be a similar color to this. Maybe a bit reddish, and then something like that for my color. And I feel that the color is just way too saturated, like at least the base color. So let's just reduce that and make it even darker like this. And keep in mind that this one is in full sunlight, so we should be looking pretty much at the shadow side here. And I think that works a lot better. Let's just run the whole thing. And even that, it might feel still a bit too scattery. So let's just reduce the master scale even further. So it's a bit more diffuse looking. And right now we have a specular weight of 1 and a roughness of 0.1, which should pretty much resemble a plastic. But based on my previous tutorial M2A 602, I'm explaining these things a bit more in detail. So yeah, let's just keep going. So let's just start on the white shader on the top here, and just frame that guy. Oh, we actually don't need to. We have everything on the right here, so that's fine. We want scattering for this as well. We have the color already. We just want to make sure that our color is a bit yellowish, not red, but a bit more yellow. Just slightly, and then the radius should be similar color, but a lot less. So we are not actually letting so much light pass through the object. And it feels like this is a bit too soft still, so we will just reduce this even further. Our main radius is now on 0.1, so let's just go 0.05. And this should change overall the softness. And this looks a bit better now. It looks more like a harder plastic. And I think it's a bit too yellow, but it still does work, I think. So let's just keep going for now. Actually, let's change it slightly. So let's just go back to the shader and just desaturate our main color. All right, so now we have a nice white shader here. So let's just work on the windows, because I think they are driving the look quite a lot. So windows should be transparent, right? So what we want to do here is have no weight for the top here, and also we don't want any roughness. So let's remove both of these things and go to the transmission tab and bring up the weight. So now we should, once it's updating, we should get clear windows, which we do. And right now, this is what it is, right? So typically what you see in plastic is everything is a bit dented, or it's not perfect, right? So you can already see here that these surfaces here are not perfectly straight, I would say. Even the windows, you can see here there's this kind of stretchiness going on and this stuff. So everything is a bit dented, and in the render you can see everything is fairly straight. So what we want to do here, we want to break this stuff up. So, and by doing that, we want to connect something to this bump map here, to the master bump. So typically it's just, you just need a noise pretty much, and then connect this to the bump map. So let's just render this selected here, or this region, and I just want to select this. So this is my noise pattern right now. What I want to do is make this in world position, just that everything is affected a bit different. If it's on object space, everything will get the same pattern. Like you can see, if I go back to object, you can see everything gets the same kind of dots. So in world, it's a bit better. Ideally, you would use UVs actually. But anyway, so let's just bring up a bit more detail in here. Maybe this is actually, let's just keep it at 1 and change the scale maybe to 2 and 2 and 2. And then bring up the distortion maybe to 0.5. And let's just see what we get. So let's just render this section here, bring back the denoiser. And right now, it's very subtle, I think. So let's just push up the bump here. Let's go 0.1. And now you can already see that we get this this breakup going. It's a bit strong now, obviously. So I think by changing the scale, and this was a bit too much. So let's just keep it at 1 and see what we get. So now we get these nice, so this is not straight anymore, right? Which is, I think, works very well. All these lines are a bit dented now. So let's just render the whole thing and just see what we get. So yeah, all these little things I'm showing you now with breaking up the surface with a bump map, all these little minor things help to sell the look. It's just about, like, the thing is, in real life, nothing is perfect, right? But in a CG render, everything is perfect because you define the environment and nature defines it, and you don't really know what's going on. So with all these little things I'm showing you, like breaking up the bump, and we will go into breaking up the color and the placement of the bricks itself, and all these things will just help sell the image. So this is just something I wanted to elaborate a bit more, why I'm doing this and why this, I think, helps to sell the look. Right, so now you can see clearly that there's some nice shaping going on, and we should also get this now on every brick, just because this is plugged into the bump master, and everything now will get this little breakup. So if there would be a light source traveling around the truck or your model, everything would like be a bit more like dented, and stuff would be moving, right? I still feel the color, the red, is a bit too saturated, so I'm just further reducing this in the subsurface tab here, just reducing the saturation. Let's see what we get now. I think this did it. No, this was slightly much, but it's overall a bit bright still. So let's just go down, bring back a bit red or orange. Yeah, and I think this might just do it. It might be now a bit dark. Let's just bring it up slightly. Okay, and now let's focus on the next thing. So you can see like this part is clear as well. So I'm not sure. I think this one actually has a texture assigned, and I'm not fully sure what this texture is for. Let's just see how this looks. So this is the texture. So I think we can just unplug this and just don't worry about this. I just want to have pretty much the same glass shader as we had on the other one, on the glass here. So it's pretty much just 1-1. So nothing too crazy. So let's just set that up. So no glass, no roughness, and just a weight on 1 for our clear window. And then we have these gray parts, and the gray ones should also be scattery. So let's just make sure we enable scattering on these guys, and the radius is, I think, fine on white. So these should now be scattering. Like if I reduce this, yeah, you can clearly see now that there's some light scattering through these. And the headlamps here should be, as you can see, nice, like glossy plastic. So let's just work on this guy. This is now, we want to have transmission on, and we want to have a color. So we just let's just see if we can pick this color actually. Which didn't work as expected, but anyways, it does work. So let's just bring the value up to 1. So now you can already see we get this nice kind of translucent effect here. What I want to do though is bring up some scattering. And what this will do is bring up some kind of fog to this whole thing, as if there's some kind of material within it. So let's just play down this value. Maybe go down to 0.1, 0.5. And the scatter color one, we want something like this as well. We can even try this. I'm not sure. I don't see it working properly. Let's just try an update full scene. And if the scatter doesn't work, then we just don't use it. Ideally, what it should do is generate some kind of like little particles in it, so it gets a bit milky, I guess. So yeah, and you can clearly see now it definitely did fog up. So let's just go lower on this, maybe even 0.25. So this is pretty much what I would be expecting to see. The only thing why it doesn't work as this at the reference here is because we don't have like the shader behind it is not like super metallic as this one is. So this would be now my metallic shader, I think. And in this guy, I will want to increase the metalness. Obviously, I know plastic is not metal per se, but it will just help sell the look if we just make this a metal. So you can trust me there that this will just make it look a bit nicer. You can already see now how this is glowing a bit better. Let's just increase the roughness maybe on 0.3 here. So now we get this nice glowing effect. And even in here it works a bit better. So just the color is off. Like here it's a bit more yellowish. What I have right now is a bit orange. So I just want to make sure I shift this into a bit more yellow space. Something like that. And now you can already see this works a lot nicer. And we get this same kind of feel to these little headlamps here. So the next thing is to work on these pipes. In the reference they are super rough. In my render they are super glossy, so all we have to do for this is just increase the roughness here, which is a fairly easy thing to do. We just bump it up until it works. And the next thing, let's see what else falls out. I think this here has not been touched yet, which is this little, oh, is it the same metal shader? Oh, it is. It's supposed to be, it's not supposed to be this. Let's just assign this shader, just so we're cheating a bit, but that's fine. So I just want to assign the gray shader to the mirror here. And this should now get this, a more like typical, no wait, this didn't work. Oh, that's metal too. Oh, I think all the gray parts are metal. Okay, so we might need to revert back. We will need to assign a different shader to these front pieces because I don't think that they are the same as this here, as the handles are. So let's just revert back by removing the metalness and keeping the scatter and changing the spec. Let's just see how they look. If they got, yeah, they don't work as nice anymore, right? So what we do now is we just select these two things, and I'll just create a standard surface shader. Standard surface shader, this guy, and I'll just select these headlamps here because I just feel it worked better with these things on. So, oops. Not this guy, but this one. And I just want to assign the shader here. And then I also want to make sure I connect the bump master to the normal camera. And now, let's see, now we should have white pretty much. And I just want to quickly change the shader back to this metal shader. Fairly quick. So we get the previous look back. All right, so what else? We have got the gray on top. We have actually a texture already working up here. So we didn't have to do anything because the script did all the hard work for us. So we just connected the cloth to this. All we have to do, I think, is change the roughness because it's on 0.1, which is super reflective for a cloth. So let's just go 0.6. And this should be now a lot rougher. We can also change the diffuse roughness. So it's a bit more behaving like a proper material. All right, so we've got the gray. Let's see. I think we can tint the windows a bit, because even here they seem to be clearly see-through, but I just want to give them some kind of more love, I'd say. All right, so these windows right now, they're just fully white. What I want to do, I want to play the same thing with the scatter. So if I bring this up and I increase my depth, you can now see they look almost smoky, right? And I want to have that effect, but obviously not that strong. I want to have them slightly like yellowish, as if they, by age, they just got a bit like yellowish, like feverish, I think is a good term. So let's just try to sell this effect a bit. So that's too much. 0.5 is still too much. Let's go on 1. So now you can see that there's some kind of tint to this. It's not fully see-through. There's some kind of, as if it's just a bit dirtied up, right? So this is pretty much what I want to go for. All right, so now let's talk about changing the color slightly. I know that it's not super visible here, but you get some kind of Lego bricks which have a bit different color variation. So some are a bit more faded than others. And there's a nice little trick which we can do, which is called a AI jitter color. And I always love this because it adds some kind of randomization to your renders. If I can't type it out, color jitter, that's the problem. All right, so what I want to do, I want to jitter the surface color here. So what I want to do, I just want to save this color and plug it in as my input like this, right? So this is now my input, and I just want to connect the out color from this to the subsurface color. And if I do isolate selected, we should now see our color, which is still just a constant. So what I want to do in the color jitter, if I go to object, what I want to do, I want to change the saturation slightly. So now you can see some of those bricks are pretty much fading out. So we can just go minus 0.05. So there's some soft color variation, and we can also hue shift them into a yellowish color. So we would go 0.01 maybe. Just, it's really subtle, right? You can just barely see these color shifts, but I think this will just help sell the look. So let's just remove the selection and see how much it looks, how much different it looks. It's actually barely visible. You can see there's some kind of color shift between these two guys, but it's very subtle, which is great, which is what I want. And also I think by looking at this, I think our scatter scale is still too much. So let's just reduce this even further. So we have on 0.05, let's go on 0.025. So now we have even a bit less scatter. And what kind of IOR do we actually have? We have a 1.5 IOR for our reflection. Let's just boost this to 1.6 just to get a bit more spec response on the plastic here. And then another trick which I want to do, which helps it a bit, is changing vertical placements of some kind of Lego bricks. And you can see what I mean in here. So this is obviously a photo of this. And you can see there is always like gaps here. So it's not perfectly blended together. And in here, because it was generated on the computer, you can see that all these things are just working perfectly. They're all stacked properly. So in the script editor, in the utilities thing, I have something like this, which is called random uniform, and this will randomize certain things. And only right now we are setting the Y direction. So what I can do now, I can just select, because we're just rendering that one side, at least what I can do is select objects. I think we should select them properly. I'm not sure why they are not selected in here. There we go. I just pressed the up arrow on my keyboard. So all these things now are selected which might be a bit too much. So let's just control click and deselect a few which I don't want. Let's say I just want to move these guys here. So now that these are selected, what I can do now is run that little script. So for my selection, so I'm just selecting all the pieces, and based on my current selection, I just want to randomize the Y translation by 0.02. Random is not defined, so random, let's just run the whole script from the top down, and you could see now there was a minor shift, but that's all we need to break it up. You can see now there's more gaps here and there's more gaps down there. So this is just breaking up just the edges slightly, right? This adds quite a bit more realism to your objects, or at least to your renders, I think. So we can do the same thing with these guys. So I'm just selecting a few pieces here, and I'm just rerunning the whole script. And you can see there was a slight shift and everything got offset by a fraction. Can do it in the front here. You can also just do it on selected pieces, obviously, or just on one piece. So if I run this again, you can see there was a slight offset. Yeah, cool. So you can see definitely there's some kind of gap here now, and you can also see that there are more gaps here on the sides, and I think that works super well. The only thing I'm noticing now is I think that my round corner shader is a bit too aggressive. So let's just go down to 0.25 maybe. And also increase the samples maybe to 9. So it's just a bit more detailed. All right, so what I want to do next is I want to add some depth of field, because we are zoomed in pretty close, but we don't have any depth of field. And I would expect there should be quite a lot of depth of field. So what I want to do, I want to create a locator, and I want to place it wherever I want the render to be in focus. So let's just do the windshield here. And what I want to do next is in the outliner, I want to select my main render camera and then the object. And I have a little script in light shaders, which you can download from my website if you want it. And then I just want to constrain the focus rig to this. So all it's doing is creating a measure tool, measuring the distance, and this is plugged into the camera, into the Arnold focus distance. So if I change my type now to basic, you can see now that we have some depth of field going on, and you can see now it's blurring out the back of the rear of the vehicle, which is great. It might just be a bit too strong, at least for my taste. So the default is on aperture size of 1, so let's just go down to 0.5. So it's not that strong, I think. And let's just run the shaded version of this. And then the next step would be to just add a different kind of light setup, which is a studio light setup, which I always use to just test my shaders and see if they are working as expected. So this is right now the sunny environment. So let's just actually store this as a snapshot. And in my light dome, what I want to do, I just want to create a file node, and I want to load in my preset, which is a studio preset, and I just want to hook that up to the color. And I think we need to update the render. Oh, it actually just came through. But yeah, so this is a studio environment, so it's now pretty much side lit, which is cool. So we have some front lighting, some side lighting, and then it's pretty much just gray. So yeah, and this is my testing environment, and you can see now how it works in a different lighting scenario. You can see now that we get these kind of modulation on the bricks. It's not super apparent, but it's definitely there, and I think it works well. It might actually be a bit strong, but we just keep it there for now, because I think it adds a nice little touch. Yeah, and then also what we can do next is definitely add some kind of beauty lighting in the back here if you really want to do that. Let's just store this image quickly, and I just go to Arnold lights, area light, and I'm just placing it pretty much here in the back. So what I want to do is have it being reflected off the back side here. So let's just create that, make it larger. Something like that, and then we just need to place it a bit, and obviously want to crank up the exposure, and we just want to render this back area here. Now we can see the light is already affecting it. Yeah, and it's fading off. So this is pretty much what I wanted to get. So just that we have some light here, which is then trailing off. So let's just bring up the exposure to 10 maybe. Definitely too strong, but just let's see how it overall feels. It's obviously super glossy now, and I think by changing the IOR of this to 1.6, we went a bit too far. Let's just reduce this. Now it's not super bright. And I think now looking at this in the studio lighting, we can actually bring back some color we had on the little bricks here. We're at the jitter color, so let's just bring this up a bit so we get a bit more color, because in the reference it's actually very red. So just revisiting that shader quickly. So while the T1 is still rendering, I just want to give you like a quick update on what I'm doing here now. So this tutorial was mainly about how to set up or bring in these Lego bricks and how to apply some kind of more procedural way of working using scripts to set up shaders, to do connections for you, so you don't need to do all the manual work. And the good thing about this little script which I'm providing is that you can go on that website and just actually use any model and run the script, and you will always get a already pretty good state of rendering. So you just need to fine tweak the shaders slightly, and that's pretty much all you have to do. And you can see how fast the setup time was for this. And now we just can actually spend some time on doing some surfacing, or other people call it look deving or whatever. So that is the beauty of automation. So at some point everything will be even more automated, but that is pretty much the idea of what I wanted to show you. Yeah, and now looking at the render, it actually looks pretty cool, right? And like if we compare this to without the light source now and with a bit more shader tweaks, I think this works super well. One thing which we didn't do is change the rim shader, but I think that's up to you if you want to do that and actually add more like metalness to them, because they are a bit more metallic actually than what we have in the render. We can actually totally just do that quickly. So let's just change this shader to a metal as well, and bring up the color and bring up the roughness even more, a bit less, and then we already have those nice little bricks. So mainly I just wanted to show you like the techniques, like how to break it up. So add some bump maps to this, which helps you sell it more. Add some jitter color to everything to break up the colors, because nothing in real life is a perfect clean color. What you can also do is use a occlusion shader to add some kind of art, like some kind of dust to it. There's like lots of minor things, but I think the biggest thing is changing the windows so they're not perfectly straight in the refraction, and also just by tinting them, like just adding some kind of dirtiness to the windows. And I think that was mainly what I wanted to show you with this rather quick tutorial, I think, about at least just getting into a more detailed kind of workflow. And as I said before, all these scene files and Python scripts will be available on Patreon, so be sure to check out the tier. Also, if you want to support me, there's quite a few options to show your appreciation on the website on Patreon. I'm slowly also implementing the YouTube membership thing, so keep an eye out for that. You can already sign up for a YouTube membership, which gives you pretty much the same benefits right now as on Patreon. So I just wanted to let you guys know that this exists as well. So in any case, I will be rendering out some beauty renders now, which I'll put in the thumbnail, and also for you to enjoy after or while watching the video. So all I want to do is say thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope this helped you a bit just in terms of understanding how you can automate workflows, and just in general if you wanted to see another nice tutorial from me. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in the next tutorial.